The wedding invitation arrived on a Tuesday, cream-colored cardstock with gold-embossed lettering that probably cost more per square inch than my weekly grocery budget. Marcus Chen and Vivian St. Clair request the honor of your presence. I stared at it for a long moment, my coffee growing cold in my hand, before my daughter Lily's voice pulled me back to reality. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Mom, is that from Dad? She peered over my shoulder, her dark curls, my curls, falling across her face. At 14, she'd developed that particular brand of teenage perception that could slice through any parental deflection. Yes, sweetheart. He's getting married. To the Instagram model. Lily's tone was perfectly neutral, but I caught the slight tightness around her eyes. 3 years since the divorce, and she'd become expert at hiding her feelings about her father's new life. She's a lifestyle influencer, I corrected automatically, though I wasn't sure why I was defending Vivian. The woman had exactly zero influence on my lifestyle unless you counted the way my daughter sometimes scrolled through her posts with an expression I couldn't quite read. Right. And we're invited? Lily picked up the invitation, examining it like an artifact from an alien civilization. That's not weird at all. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to thank each of you for being part of this incredible journey. If you're enjoying these stories of empowerment, consider subscribing. It's completely free and helps us build this amazing community. Let's dive in. The invitation had come with a personal note in Marcus's precise handwriting. Lily should be there. She's part of my life, Catherine, even if you and I didn't work out. Besides, Vivian insists, she wants to start our marriage with complete family integration. Family integration, as if we were companies merging rather than human beings navigating the messy aftermath of a broken marriage. That was Marcus, always reducing emotions to business terminology. 10 years of marriage had taught me his vocabulary. Optimizing resources meant cutting costs. Realigning priorities meant he was working late again. Pursuing different growth trajectories had meant divorce. Are we going? Lily asked, setting the invitation back on the kitchen counter like it might bite. I looked at my daughter, tall for her age, with my dark hair and olive skin, my wide-set eyes and sharp cheekbones. She had my hands too, long-fingered and expressive. People always commented on how much she looked like me. Always. Do you want to go? Lily shrugged, that universal teenage gesture of complex emotions compressed into a shoulder movement. I guess I should. He is my dad, even if he barely texts anymore. The barely masked hurt in her voice made my chest tighten. Marcus had always been an absent father, but since meeting Vivian 2 years ago, his sporadic visits had dwindled to birthday phone calls and Christmas presents delivered by courier. The last time he'd actually seen Lily in person had been 7 months ago, a stiff brunch where he'd spent more time checking his phone than talking to his daughter. We'll go, I decided, surprising myself. You should be there for this milestone in his life. What I didn't say was that something in his note had triggered an old, familiar unease. The way he'd emphasized part of my life with underlying hesitation. The formal tone that suggested obligation rather than genuine desire. I'd been married to Marcus long enough to read between his carefully constructed lines. That evening, after Lily had retreated to her room for homework, and what was probably actually TikTok, I pulled out the box from the top of my closet. The divorce box. Every divorced person had one. The collection of documents and memories too important to throw away, but too painful to keep accessible. Ours was an understated gray storage container that had once held winter sweaters. I sifted through the papers. Our marriage certificate from that courthouse ceremony where we'd been too young and too in love to care about the lack of flowers or guests. Lily's birth certificate, her tiny footprints stamped in the corner. Hospital bracelets. First ultrasound photos where she'd been nothing but a peanut-shaped promise of the future. And underneath, the folder I'd promised myself I'd throw away but never could. Divorce documents, property settlement, custody agreement. And clipped to the back, a printed email chain from 2 years before the divorce, when things had started to fracture but neither of us would admit it yet. The email was from Marcus to his mother, accidentally forwarded to me when he'd been trying to send me something about Lily's school schedule. I'd never told him I'd seen it. "Mom, I know you have concerns about my marriage. You're not wrong. I've been thinking lately that Lily looks nothing like me, nothing like anyone in our family. I'm probably paranoid, but sometimes I wonder. Catherine was so independent when we met, so secretive about her past. What if there's something she never told me?" I'd read those words 100 times, each reading like a fresh paper cut. Not the deep wound of outright accusation, but the persistent sting of doubt. Marcus had never confronted me, never demanded answers, never asked for a paternity test. He'd just let the suspicion fester, poisoning our marriage from the inside like black mold in the walls. The affair accusation had come later, during one of our last fights before the divorce. We'd been arguing about his mother's comments. She'd made another pointed observation about Lily's appearance at Thanksgiving dinner, and Marcus had finally said it. Maybe my mother has a point. Maybe there's a reason Lily looks nothing like me. Were you ever going to tell me the truth, Catherine? I'd been so angry I'd thrown a coffee mug at the wall. The truth about what, Marcus? That genetics are complex? That recessive traits exist? Or are you asking if I cheated on you? I'm asking why my daughter has none of my features. Not my eyes, not my hair, not my build. Nothing. She has your stubbornness, I'd shot back, and your talent for making everything about you. He'd moved out 2 weeks later. The divorce had been his idea, pushed through with the same efficiency he brought to his consulting work. I'd been too hurt and exhausted to fight it. We'd agreed on joint custody, though Marcus had never actually exercised his full rights. Too busy building his new life. The truth was both simple and complicated. Lily didn't look like Marcus because genetics had rolled the dice, and every single feature had come up Catherine Chen, née Rodriguez. My mother's side of the family, with our dark Mediterranean coloring, had simply been dominant. Marcus, with his fair skin, light brown hair, and blue eyes, hadn't contributed anything visible to our daughter's appearance. It happened. Google was full of families where children looked like one parent and not the other. But Marcus's doubt had poisoned everything. Once planted, the suspicion had grown roots that strangled our marriage. Every time someone commented on how much Lily looked like me, I'd felt his silent accusation. Every father-daughter milestone had been tinged with his uncertainty. Did she have my smile or a stranger's? My temperament or someone else's genetics? I'd never cheated on Marcus. Not once. Not even close. During our marriage, I'd been completely faithful. Perhaps stupidly so given how often he'd worked late and traveled for business. But his doubt had made me feel guilty anyway, as if my innocence needed proving, as if the burden of his insecurity was somehow my responsibility. Now, staring at that wedding invitation on my kitchen counter, I wondered if this was Marcus's way of closing that chapter. Marrying Vivian, starting fresh, letting go of his suspicions about Lily's paternity. Or maybe Vivian was pregnant, and he wanted Lily there to witness the arrival of the sibling he'd probably think looked more like him. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister, Rachel. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Did you get the invitation? Please tell me you're not actually going to watch Marcus marry a 26-year-old. I typed back. Lily wants to go. And yes, she's 26. Marcus is 42, practically age-appropriate by Hollywood standards. That's disgusting, and you know it. Also, I saw Vivian's Instagram. She posted about blending her beautiful family with photos of Marcus. No mention of Lily. I didn't respond. What could I say? That I'd noticed the same thing? That Marcus's social media presence had been carefully curated to exclude any evidence of his daughter from his first marriage? That Lily had definitely noticed too, even if she pretended not to care? The wedding was 3 weeks away, being held at the Rosewood Estate, one of those venues that cost more than my annual salary. Marcus had done well for himself since the divorce. His consulting firm had taken off, and Vivian came from old money, the kind that whispered rather than shouted but bought influence and access all the same. I'd need a dress. So would Lily. And I'd need to prepare myself for an evening of watching Marcus pledge his life to someone else, while pretending my heart hadn't been broken by the same man in the same ceremony 16 years ago. The next morning, I took Lily shopping. We drove to the mall, that teenage ritual of bonding through retail therapy, though my budget required more therapy than retail. Lily had inherited my height, but not my proportions. She was all legs and angles, growing faster than I could keep up with. I don't know what you wear to your dad's wedding when you're the kid from the first marriage, Lily said as we walked past store windows displaying spring collections we couldn't afford. Something that makes you feel confident, I suggested. Something that reminds you that you're there because you matter, not because you're an awkward obligation. Lily shot me a look. That's very therapeutic of you, Mom. I've been reading books. I know. I saw the stack by your bed. Conscious co-parenting with a narcissist. Protecting your child through divorce. When your ex moves on. They're not exactly subtle. I felt my cheeks warm. Knowledge is power. Is Dad a narcissist? The question hung between us as we stepped into a department store, cool air conditioning washing over us. I considered my answer carefully. Marcus wasn't a narcissist in the clinical sense, but he was profoundly self-centered in ways that masqueraded as professionalism and ambition. Your father is complicated, I said finally. He loves you in his own way, but he's not always good at showing it. That's a diplomatic way of saying he's kind of a jerk. Lily, what? Mom, I'm not stupid. I know he barely talks to me anymore. I know he chose his new girlfriend over spending time with me. I know he's been weird about how I look since I was like 10. She paused in front of a display of cocktail dresses, her reflection multiplied in the mirrors. He thinks I'm not his, doesn't he? My heart stopped. Why would you say that? I heard him on the phone once, before the divorce. He was talking to Grandma Chen. He said I didn't look like anyone in the family, that maybe there were things about you he didn't know. Lily's voice was steady, but her eyes were bright with unshed tears. I was 12. I didn't understand what he meant then, but I do now. I wanted to hug her, but the middle of a department store felt wrong for this conversation. Instead, I touched her arm gently. Lily, I never cheated on your father. Not once. You are absolutely 100% his daughter, Genetics is just random sometimes. You happen to get all your visible traits from my side of the family. That's not unusual, it's just how DNA works. Then why won't he believe that? Because I stopped, searching for words that wouldn't damage her relationship with her father more than it already was. Because sometimes people look for reasons to explain their unhappiness, and they blame the wrong things. Your dad and I grew apart for a lot of reasons. His doubts about your paternity were a symptom of our problems, not the cause. Lily pulled a navy blue dress off the rack, examining it without really seeing it. Does he know you know he doesn't believe I'm his? We've never directly discussed it, no. That's so passive-aggressive. Very on brand for him. She held the dress up to herself, checking the length. This could work. Sophisticated, but not trying too hard. The color says, I'm mature enough to handle my father's life choices, without saying, I'm desperate for his attention. I laughed, despite the heaviness of our conversation. When did you become so wise about color psychology? Fashion TikTok is very educational. Also, I have a lot of feelings and limited ways to express them, so clothes help. She grinned at me, and for a moment, I saw the little girl who used to play dress-up in my closet, drowning in my shoes and declaring herself a princess. Your turn. You need something that says, I've moved on and I'm thriving, even if you're actually dead inside. I'm not dead inside. Mom, you've been wearing the same rotation of yoga pants for 3 months. I love you, but you're barely surviving, let alone thriving. She wasn't wrong. The divorce had left me financially strained and emotionally exhausted. I'd focused all my energy on making sure Lily was okay, on maintaining stability in her life, on being the reliable parent since Marcus had checked out. My own healing had been postponed indefinitely. We found a dress for me eventually, a deep burgundy sheath that Lily insisted made me look expensive and unavailable, which she assured me was the exact vibe I needed. It cost more than I wanted to spend, but looking at myself in the mirror, I had to admit it helped. I looked like someone who'd survived and maybe even flourished. As we left the mall, shopping bags in hand, Lily asked, Do you think Dad's happy with Vivian? I think he thinks he is, I said carefully. Whether he actually is, that's harder to say. Your father has always been good at convincing himself he's made the right decisions. Even when he hasn't. Especially then. The days leading up to the wedding passed in a blur of preparation and anxiety. I got my hair done, a luxury I rarely afforded myself. Lily practiced walking in her new heels, wobbling around our apartment like a newborn giraffe. We laughed about it, making a game of her instability, but underneath was the nervous anticipation of seeing Marcus in his new life. 2 days before the wedding, Marcus called. Not Lily. Me. I stared at his name on my phone screen, debating whether to answer. We communicated almost exclusively through text these days, brief logistical messages about Lily's schedule. An actual phone call felt ominous. Catherine. His voice was exactly as I remembered. Smooth, professional, slightly distant even when trying to be warm. Marcus, is everything okay? Fine, yes. I wanted to touch base before the wedding. Make sure you and Lily are still planning to attend. We are. Lily's been looking forward to it. A lie, but a kind one. Good. That's good. He paused, and I heard something uncertain in his voice. Vivian's really making an effort here. She wants Lily to feel included. Part of our new family unit. Family unit. There was that corporate speak again. That's thoughtful of her. She's a good person, Catherine. I know things between you and me ended badly, but Vivian's different. Better for me, I think. I bit back my immediate response. That if Vivian was so different and better, Why was he calling his ex-wife for validation? Instead, I said, "I'm glad you're happy, Marcus. There's something else." He cleared his throat, a tell that he was nervous. I'd heard that throat clear before every difficult conversation we'd ever had. "My mother will be at the wedding. I assumed as much. It's your wedding. She's been saying things about Lily, about—" Another pause. "About the past. About questions that were never answered." My grip tightened on the phone. "What kind of questions?" "Catherine, you know what I'm talking about. The way Lily looks. The questions about her paternity. My mother's never let it go, and now with the wedding, she's making Vivian uncomfortable. Asking why Lily should be in the family photos when there's never been proof she's actually mine." The anger hit me like a physical force. "Are you serious right now? You're calling me 2 days before your wedding to tell me your mother is still spreading this poison? I'm not saying I agree with her, aren't you? Marcus, you've believed this about me for years. Don't pretend otherwise. I've seen the way you look at Lily, like you're searching for your features and coming up empty. I felt your doubt every single time someone comments on how much she looks like me. If you'd just agree to a paternity test." "No." The word came out sharp and final. "I will not validate your and your mother's baseless accusations with a paternity test. Lily is your daughter. She was conceived during our marriage. I never cheated on you. The fact that you can't accept basic genetics isn't my problem to solve." "Catherine, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. What's unreasonable is you calling me before your wedding to ask me to prove something that doesn't need proving. What's unreasonable is you letting your mother poison your relationship with your daughter for years. What's unreasonable is you never defending me or Lily against these accusations." Silence stretched between us. Finally, Marcus said, "Vivian suggested maybe we could do a quiet test, just to settle the question once and for all. Then my mother would have to drop it, and we could all move forward. Vivian suggested this. Your fiancé who's never met Lily in person. She's trying to help. She thinks clearing the air before we get married would be healthy. A fresh start." I laughed, a harsh sound even to my own ears. A fresh start requires you to actually believe in the possibility that you're wrong. Do you, Marcus? Do you actually think there's a chance Lily is yours and you've spent years doubting your daughter for nothing? The silence that followed told me everything. "We'll be at your wedding," I said finally, my voice cold. "Because Lily deserves to see her father get married. Because despite everything, she loves you. But if your mother says one word, one single word, about Lily's paternity at that wedding, we're leaving. And if you ever ask me about a paternity test again, you'll be doing it through lawyers. Are we clear?" "Catherine—" I hung up. My hands were shaking. I set the phone down on the kitchen counter and focused on breathing, on not letting the anger and hurt spiral into something Lily would see. After all these years, Marcus could still wound me. Not with love lost, I'd mourned that marriage long ago, but with his willingness to doubt, to suspect, to let his family poison his relationship with his daughter. "Mom?" Lily's voice came from the hallway. "Was that Dad?" How much had she heard? I turned to find her standing in her doorway, her expression carefully neutral, a skill she'd learned too young. "Yes, honey. He was just confirming we're coming to the wedding." And we are." Lily studied me for a long moment, reading all the things I wasn't saying. "Grandma Chen's going to be there, isn't she?" "Yes. She's going to say something awful about how I look. She might try, but if she does, we'll leave. Your father knows that." Lily nodded slowly, then said something that broke my heart. "Mom, maybe we should just do the test. Maybe it would be easier if we just proved I'm his and then everyone could move on. No. I walked over to her, took her hands in mine. Listen to me, Lily. You don't owe anyone proof of your existence or your worth. You are Marcus's daughter. That's a biological fact, not a question to be debated or tested because of other people's insecurities. Doing a paternity test wouldn't satisfy them. It would just teach you that your worth is contingent on proving yourself to people who should already believe in you. But if it would make Dad... If your father needs a paternity test to love you, then the problem isn't the absence of a test. It's the absence of his faith in you. And that's not something you can fix, baby. That's something he needs to fix in himself. Lily's eyes filled with tears. It's not fair. No, it's not. I didn't ask to be born into this mess. I know, and I'm sorry you were. But you're the best thing that ever came from my marriage to your father, and I wouldn't change you for anything. Not one single thing. You're perfect exactly as you are. She hugged me then, fierce and tight, and I held my daughter and wondered how Marcus could look at her and see anything but a miracle. The night before the wedding, I barely slept. I kept replaying Marcus's phone call, hearing the doubt in his voice, the way he'd let Vivian, a woman he'd known for 2 years, influence his relationship with his daughter. Part of me wanted to text him and tell him we weren't coming, that Lily deserved better than to attend a wedding where her own grandmother questioned her paternity, that he deserved to spend his special day without the daughter he'd never fully claimed. But Lily wanted to go. And despite everything, she deserved the chance to be part of her father's life, even if he didn't fully appreciate what a gift that was. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and bright, one of those perfect spring days that seem designed for celebrations. I helped Lily with her hair, pinning up her curls in a way that made her look older, more sophisticated. She looked beautiful in her navy dress, poised in a way that made my chest ache with pride and protectiveness. "You ready for this?" I asked as we stood in front of the mirror together, mother and daughter, looking so alike that anyone with eyes could see the connection. "No," Lily admitted, "but I'm going anyway. That's my girl, brave even when you're terrified. I learned from the best." We drove to the Rosewood estate in my 10-year-old Honda, passing luxury cars that probably cost more than my annual salary. The venue was stunning, all manicured gardens and classic architecture, the kind of place that whispered old money and new privilege. Valet parking attendants looked at my Honda with barely disguised disdain, but I handed over my keys with my head held high. Inside, the wedding was already a spectacle. White roses everywhere, crystal chandeliers, and enough tulle to supply a ballet company for a year. Guests milled about in designer outfits, sipping champagne and discussing things like emerging markets and vacation properties. This was Marcus's world now. This was what he'd chosen. Catherine? Marcus's mother appeared before us like a designer-clad specter. Margaret Chen, with her perfect silver bob and string of pearls, regarded me with the cool disdain she'd perfected over decades of looking down on people she considered beneath her. "I'm surprised you came." "Margaret." I kept my voice neutral. "You look well." Her gaze shifted to Lily, and I saw the calculation in her eyes, the assessment, the doubt. "Lily, you've grown." "Hi, Grandma." Lily's voice was small, and I wanted to shield her from the judgment I saw forming in Margaret's expression. "You're so tall now, and still so—" Margaret paused, her words loaded with implication. "Different from our family. Interesting how genetics work, isn't it? Actually, it's perfectly normal for children to strongly resemble one parent, I said before Lily could respond. Dominant and recessive traits are basic biology, Margaret. I'm sure you learned that in school. Margaret's lips pursed. Of course. Though one does wonder sometimes about the things we don't know, the secrets people keep. Margaret. Mom, Dad's looking for you. A voice interrupted. Marcus's younger brother, Daniel, appearing like a savior. He gave me an apologetic look. Hey, Catherine. Lily. You both look great. Thank you, Daniel. Margaret swept away, leaving behind a wake of expensive perfume and implied accusations. Daniel watched her go, then sighed. I'm sorry about her. She's been on a tear lately about, well, you know. I know. For what it's worth, I think she's being ridiculous. Lily's obviously Marcus's daughter. Anyone with eyes can see she's got his stubborn streak. He grinned at Lily. How's school, kiddo? Lily relaxed slightly at his genuine warmth. Good. Honor roll again. Of course you are. Smart like your mom. Daniel squeezed my shoulder. I should get back. Ceremony starts in 20 minutes. You guys okay? We're fine, I assured him, though I wasn't sure it was true. As Daniel left, Lily turned to me. I want to leave. We just got here. Grandma Chen just... Her voice cracked. She basically said I'm not Dad's daughter right to my face. Why are we here, Mom? Why are we putting ourselves through this? Because your father invited you. Because you deserve to be here. Because we're not going to let Margaret Chen or anyone else make us feel like we don't belong. But what if she's right? What if Dad doesn't really want me here? What if he just invited me because he felt obligated? I cupped her face in my hands, making her look at me. Then that's his loss, baby, not yours. You're here because you're choosing to give him a chance. That makes you the bigger person. That makes you brave. Don't let their doubts become your doubts. She nodded, blinking back tears. Okay. You're right. I can do this. We can do this. Together. We found our seats in the ceremony area, not family section, I noticed. We were several rows back, mixed in with Marcus's work colleagues and distant relatives. Another small wound. Another reminder that we were part of his old life, not his new one. The ceremony began with the traditional processional. Bridesmaids in blush pink, groomsmen in crisp black tuxedos. And then Vivian, appearing at the end of the aisle in a dress that probably cost more than my car. She was beautiful in that filtered, curated way Instagram had perfected. All dewy skin and perfect highlights, looking younger than her 26 years. She walked toward Marcus, who waited at the altar looking like every groom in every movie, nervous but happy, eyes shining with hope and promise. I remembered when he'd looked at me like that, before life and disappointment had worn away the shine. The officiant began the ceremony, the traditional words about love and commitment, till death do us part. I felt Lily tense beside me when Marcus said, I do, as if she was feeling the finality of it. Her father was officially moving on, officially starting a new family, officially leaving his old life and us behind. I now pronounce you husband and wife. Applause rippled through the crowd. Marcus kissed Vivian, and everyone cheered. Lily's hand found mine, squeezing tight. Still doing okay? I whispered. Ask me in an hour, she whispered back. The reception was held in the estate's grand ballroom, another display of wealth and taste that made my target dress feel inadequate. We found our table, again, not with family. We were seated with some of Marcus's work associates and their partners, people who made polite small talk and clearly had no idea who we were. The evening proceeded with the usual wedding rituals. First dance, cake cutting, toast after toast about Marcus and Vivian's love story, their bright future, their perfect match. No one mentioned that Marcus had been married before. No one acknowledged the teenager sitting at table 17 who was slowly shrinking into herself with each passing hour. I was considering making our excuses and leaving when Margaret Chen's voice rang out across the ballroom. "I'd like to make a toast." Oh no. Marcus's face went pale. Even from across the room, I could see him realize what was about to happen. Vivian looked confused, glass of champagne halfway to her lips. Margaret stood elegant and imperious, commanding attention without effort. "To my son and his beautiful bride. Marcus, you found something special in Vivian. A fresh start. A real family. I know the past years have been complicated, with questions and doubts and—" She glanced in our direction. "Uncertainties. But today, you get to put all that behind you. Today, you start your real life with someone who truly belongs." The room fell silent. People looked uncomfortable, sensing something beneath the words even if they didn't understand the context. Lily's hand in mine was shaking. Margaret continued, oblivious or uncaring. "I hope this new marriage brings you the family you've always deserved. The children you can look at without doubt. The legacy that truly carries your name and blood. To Marcus and Vivian." To Marcus and Vivian. The room echoed weakly, glasses raised in confusion. Lily stood up so fast her chair scraped across the floor. "Mom, I need to leave. Now." I nodded, already gathering my purse. We were halfway to the exit when Marcus intercepted us. "Catherine, wait. Please. I'm so sorry. I didn't know she was going to—" "Yes, you did," I said quietly. "Maybe not the exact words, but you knew, Marcus. You've always known how your mother feels about Lily, and you've never stopped her." "I will. I'll talk to her right now. Don't bother. We're leaving." "Lily." Marcus reached for our daughter, but she stepped back. "Don't touch me." Her voice was steady despite the tears running down her face. "You let her say that, in front of everyone. You let your mother tell everyone I'm not really your daughter, and you just stood there." "That's not what she said." "That's exactly what she said. And you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm not your daughter, not in any way that matters, because a real father wouldn't let someone humiliate his child at his wedding. A real father would choose his daughter over his mother's delusions." "Lily, please." "I'm done, Dad. I'm done trying to prove I exist to you. I'm done shrinking myself so you don't have to feel uncomfortable. I'm done." She turned and walked toward the exit, head held high despite the tears. I paused just long enough to say to Marcus, "You'll be hearing from my lawyer about custody arrangements. Don't call us." Then I followed my daughter out of Marcus's wedding and, hopefully, out of his ability to hurt her anymore. We drove home in silence, Lily crying quietly in the passenger seat. When we pulled into our apartment complex, she finally spoke. "I meant what I said. I'm done with him." "You don't have to decide that now, honey. You're hurt and angry." "I'm clear. For the first time, I'm actually clear. He doesn't get to keep doing this. He doesn't get to keep hurting me and then act confused about why I'm upset." I pulled into our parking spot, turned off the engine, and looked at my daughter, my brave, hurting, beautiful daughter who deserved so much better than what she'd gotten tonight. "Okay," I said. "Okay. If that's what you need, I support you. I want to take the test. Lily, not for him, for me. I want to know, definitively, that I'm his daughter, so that when I tell him I never want to see him again, he knows he's losing someone who was actually his. He needs to know exactly what he's throwing away." I studied her face, seeing the determination there. "Are you sure?" I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Can we do it Monday? We can do it Monday. We went inside, both of us still in our fancy dresses, makeup smudged from tears. I made hot chocolate, our comfort ritual from when she was little, and we sat on the couch together, the wedding receding into the past with each sip. "Mom?" Lily asked after a while. "Yeah? Do you ever regret marrying him?" I considered the question carefully. I regret how it ended. I regret that he couldn't be the father you deserved, but I can't regret the marriage entirely because it gave me you, and you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Even though I ruined your life, you didn't ruin my life. You're the reason I have a life worth living. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and we sat like that for a long time, two survivors of the same wreckage, holding each other up. Monday morning, we went to a private lab I'd researched over the weekend. The technician was kind and professional, swabbing Lily's cheek with careful efficiency. Getting Marcus's DNA sample was trickier. I'd kept his toothbrush from our marriage, stored away in the divorce box like evidence. The lab accepted it with a raised eyebrow, but no questions. "Results in 3 to 5 business days," the technician told us. "We'll call you when they're ready." 3 to 5 business days to confirm what I already knew. 3 to 5 business days before Lily could have the closure she needed. 3 to 5 business days before Marcus would have to face the truth he'd spent years denying. What I didn't know, what none of us could have predicted, was that those test results would prove something far more complicated than any of us had imagined. But that revelation was still days away, waiting in the DNA sequences that would unravel everything we thought we knew about our family. For now, we went home, Lily went to school, and I went to work. And we both tried to ignore the anxious feeling that we'd set something in motion that couldn't be stopped. The call came on Thursday afternoon while I was at work. I'd been staring at the same spreadsheet for 20 minutes, unable to concentrate, when my phone lit up with an unknown number. "Ms. Rodriguez, this is Dr. Patterson from Gene Diagnostics Lab. Your test results are ready." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Already? You said 3 to 5 days. The analysis was straightforward. Would you like me to email the results, or would you prefer to come in to discuss them?" Something in her tone made my stomach drop. "Is there a problem with the results?" A pause. "The results are conclusive. However, they're somewhat unusual. I think it would be best if we discussed them in person. Can you come in this afternoon?" "Unusual how?" "Ms. Rodriguez, I really think—" "Just tell me. Is Marcus Chen Lily's biological father or not?" Another pause, longer this time. "According to the DNA analysis, Marcus Chen is not Lily's biological father. However, there are some additional findings that I believe warrant discussion." The room tilted. I gripped my desk to steady myself. "That's impossible. I never cheated on him. Not once. I understand this is shocking. Please, come in so we can go over the complete results. Can you be here by 4? I agreed, hung up and stared at my phone like it had betrayed me. This wasn't possible. It couldn't be possible. I'd been faithful to Marcus throughout our entire marriage. Lily had been conceived during a weekend trip to Napa Valley, just the two of us, trying to save a marriage that was already fracturing. There was no other man. There had never been another man. Unless... My mind raced back 15 years. The fertility clinic. We'd been trying to get pregnant for 8 months with no success. Marcus had suggested we see a specialist, get tested. I'd gone to the appointments, done the procedures. Had something gone wrong? Had there been a mix-up? I called Lily's school, told them I was picking her up early for a doctor's appointment. She was waiting in the office when I arrived, already sensing something was wrong. "The results came back?" she asked as soon as we were in the car. "Yes. We need to go to the lab. They want to discuss them in person." "That's bad, isn't it? They only make you come in when it's bad news." I didn't answer, just drove, my mind spinning through possibilities and impossibilities, trying to make sense of the senseless. Dr. Patterson was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and the careful demeanor of someone used to delivering difficult news. She ushered us into a private consultation room and spread several documents across the table. "I want to start by saying that our lab uses the highest standards of accuracy. We ran the test twice to confirm the results." She looked at me, then at Lily. "Marcus Chen is definitively not Lily's biological father. The DNA shows no paternal relationship whatsoever." Lily's hand found mine under the table, gripping tight. I forced myself to speak. "That's impossible. There was no one else." "I believe you," Dr. Patterson said gently, "which is why I asked you to come in, because the results show something else, something that might explain the situation." She pushed another document toward me. "We routinely check for genetic markers and unusual patterns. In Lily's case, we found something interesting. Her DNA shows markers consistent with artificial reproductive technology, specifically in vitro fertilization." I stared at her. "But we never did IVF. We went to a fertility clinic for testing, but they said everything was normal. We conceived naturally." "Did you undergo any procedures at the clinic? Intrauterine insemination? Any kind of assisted conception?" "Just testing. Blood work, ultrasounds. They said we were both fertile and to keep trying. And then the next month, I got pregnant." The memory was crystal clear. The joy, the relief, the feeling that we'd finally caught a break. Dr. Patterson pulled out another sheet. "I took the liberty of running Marcus Chen's DNA against our database. This is highly unusual, but given the circumstances, I felt it was warranted." She paused. "Marcus Chen is not Lily's father, but his DNA shows he has a brother, a fraternal twin specifically, whose DNA would be a close match to the sample you provided." The room went silent. Lily spoke first. "Uncle Daniel, Marcus doesn't have a twin," I said slowly. "He has a younger brother, Daniel, but they're 2 years apart." Dr. Patterson shook her head. "The genetic markers don't lie. The sample you provided shows a sibling relationship, specifically a twin relationship with someone else, someone whose DNA would be very similar to Marcus Chen's, but not identical." My mind raced. "Are you saying the toothbrush wasn't Marcus's? That somehow I grabbed the wrong one?" "That's one possibility, but there's another explanation that fits the evidence better." Dr. Patterson leaned forward. "Ms. Rodriguez, I think you need to contact the fertility clinic you visited 15 years ago, because if you were inseminated with sperm during your visit, whether knowingly or unknowingly, and if that sperm didn't come from Marcus Chen, but from someone closely related to him, it would explain everything." The words hung in the air like smoke. Lily's grip on my hand tightened to the point of pain. "You're saying the clinic might have used the wrong sperm?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm saying it's a possibility worth investigating, especially given that Lily's DNA shows clear markers of assisted reproduction, even though you believe you conceived naturally." I drove home in a daze, Lily silent beside me. When we got to the apartment, she finally spoke. "So Dad was right. He's not my father. Lily, but he was also wrong, because you didn't cheat. Someone at that clinic." Her voice cracked. "Someone messed up, and I'm the mess up. You are not a mess up. You are my daughter, and you are perfect." I pulled her into a hug. "We're going to figure this out. We're going to find out what happened. That night, after Lily went to bed, I dug through boxes in my closet until I found the folder from the fertility clinic. Westside Reproductive Health, Dr. Harrison Green, the specialist we'd seen. I remembered him, 50s, graying hair, confident manner. He'd assured us everything was fine, that we just needed to be patient. I pulled up their website. The clinic was still operating, though Dr. Green had retired 5 years ago. I sent an email to their patient services requesting my complete medical records from 15 years ago, citing the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. They had 30 days to respond. Then I did something I'd never thought I'd do. I called Marcus. He answered on the third ring. "Catherine, it's almost midnight. We got the DNA results." Silence. Then carefully, "And? You're not Lily's biological father." I heard his sharp intake of breath. "I knew it. I knew I didn't cheat on you, Marcus." "Then how?" "I don't know yet. But I'm going to find out. The lab thinks it might have something to do with the fertility clinic we went to. Do you remember if they did any procedures? Anything beyond basic testing?" "Catherine, if you're trying to make up some story, I'm not making up anything. The DNA shows markers of IVF or artificial insemination, even though neither of us remember agreeing to any procedures. Something happened at that clinic, Marcus. Something neither of us knew about." He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, uncertain. "They did take me into a room for a sperm sample. They said it was routine testing. They took me into a room too, for what they said was a routine examination, an ultrasound to check my uterine lining." The memory was suddenly vivid. "They had me wait afterward, said they wanted to make sure everything looked good. Maybe 20 minutes. I remember thinking it was odd, but the nurse said it was standard." "Jesus," Marcus breathed. "You think they, without telling us?" "I think it's possible. And if they did, if they used the wrong sperm..." I paused, processing Dr. Patterson's words. "The lab said Lily's father would have DNA very similar to yours, almost identical. A twin." "I don't have a twin." "I know, but what if..." A thought struck me, impossible and yet suddenly obvious. What if they were using donor sperm? What if they had samples labeled incorrectly or mixed up? What if the donor they used happened to be someone related to you? That's insane. Is it? Because it's the only explanation that makes sense. I was faithful to you, Marcus. Whatever else you think of me, whatever else went wrong in our marriage, I never cheated. And now we have proof that Lily isn't yours, but also proof that she was conceived through artificial insemination we don't remember consenting to. Something happened at that clinic." Marcus was quiet for so long I thought he'd hung up. Finally, "What do we do?" "I've requested my medical records. You should request yours too. And Marcus, we need to tell Lily the truth. All of it. She deserves to know. She must hate me. Right now? Probably. But maybe this gives you a chance to make things right. To actually be her father, even if not biologically. If you want to be." "I don't know what I want," he admitted, and for the first time in years, he sounded genuinely vulnerable. "I've spent so long doubting, so long looking for proof I was right to doubt. And now I have it, and I just feel empty." "That's because you've lost time you can't get back. Time you could have spent loving your daughter instead of suspecting her existence. That's on you, Marcus. But what happens next? That's on you, too." I hung up before he could respond. The medical records arrived 3 weeks later via certified mail. I spread them across my kitchen table with Lily beside me, both of us reading through the clinical language and procedure codes. And there it was, Buried in the notes from my third visit, patient underwent intrauterine insemination with prepared sperm sample. Patient husband sample. Procedure completed without complications. Patient advised to rest for 30 minutes before departure. They inseminated you, Lily said quietly, without telling you. It looks that way. My hands were shaking. This was real. This had actually happened. They told me it was an ultrasound. I signed consent forms, but they were general forms about examination and testing. Nothing specific about insemination. Marcus's records arrived 2 days later. His notes were similarly damning. Sperm sample collected and prepared for IUI. Sample quality excellent. Proceeded with insemination per standard protocol. But there was something else, a detail that made my blood run cold. The sample number on my insemination record didn't match the collection number on Marcus's record. They were off by 1 digit. Someone had used the wrong sample. I hired a lawyer, not a divorce lawyer this time, but a medical malpractice attorney who specialized in fertility clinic cases. Her name was Jennifer Ortiz, and she'd seen cases like mine before. It happens more often than you'd think, she told me during our first meeting. Clinics get sloppy with labeling, samples get mixed up. Sometimes it's an honest mistake, sometimes it's negligence. Either way, it's a violation of your rights and your bodily autonomy. Can we find out whose sample they used? That's trickier. The clinic will fight releasing that information, patient confidentiality. But if we can prove malpractice, we might be able to compel them. The fact that the DNA suggests the donor was closely related to your ex-husband, that's actually helpful. It narrows the pool significantly. How? Because it means the donor was likely at the clinic around the same time as you, possibly even the same day. If we can get the clinic's records for that date, we can identify who else was there. It took 6 months of legal maneuvering, but eventually we got what we needed. A court order compelling Westside Reproductive Health to release their patient logs and donor records from the date of my insemination. The name on the list made me dizzy. Daniel Chen, Marcus's brother. He'd been at the clinic the same day, donating sperm as part of a donor program. The samples had been stored in the same facility, processed by the same lab technician, and somehow his sample had been used instead of Marcus's. I called Daniel first, before telling anyone else. He answered cheerfully, not knowing what was coming. "Catherine, how are you? I haven't talked to you since the wedding. That was quite an exit." "Daniel, I need to tell you something. Can you sit down?" The cheerfulness evaporated. "What's wrong?" I explained everything. The DNA test, the fertility clinic, the switched samples. By the time I finished, the line was silent. "Daniel, I'm Lily's father." His voice was barely a whisper. "Biologically, yes. The clinic used your sperm instead of Marcus's. Neither of us knew. Neither of us consented to this specific use of your donation." Oh my God, Catherine, He sounded like he was hyperventilating. "I donated sperm in college to help pay tuition. I never imagined. I know, this isn't your fault. It's not anyone's fault except the clinic's. But Daniel, Lily deserves to know. She deserves to know who her biological father is." "Does Marcus know?" "Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. But I'm telling him today, and then we're all going to sit down, you, me, Marcus, and Lily, and figure out what this means for our family." "Our family," Daniel repeated, like he was testing the words. "Jesus, I'm an uncle who's actually a father. I don't even know what this is." "It's complicated. But Daniel, for what it's worth, you've always been good to Lily. You've always treated her with kindness when Marcus couldn't. That matters." I need time to process this. Take the time you need, but not too long. Lily's waiting, and she's been waiting long enough for the truth. The family meeting happened a week later at my apartment. Daniel arrived first, nervous and pale. Marcus came next, with Vivian. He'd insisted on bringing her, said she deserved to know since this affected their marriage too. I bit back my irritation. This wasn't about Marcus's marriage. This was about Lily. Lily sat between me and Daniel on the couch, quiet and watchful. She'd taken the news about Daniel with surprising calm, but I could see the wheels turning behind her eyes. Marcus spoke first, his lawyer training making him default to formal speech. I want to start by apologizing to both of you. Catherine, I should have believed you when you said you didn't cheat. Lily, I should have been a better father regardless of my doubts. I let my insecurities damage our relationship, and I'm sorry. Okay, Lily said neutrally. I've spoken with my lawyer, Marcus continued. Given the circumstances, I think it's best if we revisit the custody arrangement. Daniel is your biological father, so legally, you're still my father, Lily interrupted. You're on my birth certificate. You raised me. Or at least you were supposed to. Biology doesn't change 14 years of paperwork. But given that, Daniel, I want both of you to shut up and listen to me. Lily's voice was steady, stronger than I'd ever heard it. You, she pointed at Marcus, spent my entire life doubting me, making me feel like I had to prove I existed. Like I wasn't good enough because I didn't look like you. And now you have proof that I'm not biologically yours, and you want to use that as an excuse to walk away completely. Is that about right? Marcus flinched. I'm not trying to walk away. Yes, you are. You're using words like custody arrangement and legal status because it's easier than admitting you're relieved. You're relieved you don't have to pretend anymore. You're relieved you can start fresh with Vivian without the daughter who never looked like you anyway. The silence that followed was devastating. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Lily, that's not... Don't lie to me. Not anymore. Just don't. She turned to Daniel. And you. You've always been nice to me. Always treated me like I mattered, but now you find out I'm yours, and you look terrified, like I'm this problem you didn't sign up for. Daniel shook his head. I'm not terrified of you. I'm terrified of screwing this up, of not knowing how to be a father when I barely know how to be an adult. You're 39, and I still don't know what I'm doing most of the time. But Lily, if you'll let me... If you want me to, I'd like to try. To be in your life, however that looks. Lily studied him for a long moment. You donated sperm in college? Yeah. Needed tuition money. It seemed like easy cash at the time. Did you ever wonder about the kids? Sometimes. Mostly I tried not to think about it. It felt too big, too complicated. But now... He looked at her. Really looked at her. Now I'm looking at you, and I see my sister's eyes, my dad's smile, and I'm thinking about all the times I've watched you grow up thinking you were just my niece, and how I'm an idiot for not seeing it. I have Grandpa Chen's smile? Yeah. He passed away before you were born, but you have his exact smile. It's kind of incredible. Something in Lily's expression softened. Just a fraction, but enough to notice. Vivian spoke for the first time, her voice tentative. I know I don't really have a place in this conversation, but I want to say something. Marcus has always talked about his doubts about Lily. Always. It's been this shadow over our relationship, this thing he couldn't let go of. And I encouraged him to ask for a paternity test because I thought if we could just clear the air, we could all move forward. She looked at Lily. I didn't understand that the doubt itself was the problem. That asking you to prove your existence was the cruelty. I'm sorry for that, for not seeing how my interference would hurt you. Lily nodded slowly. Thank you for saying that. And for what it's worth, Vivian continued, I don't think Marcus should walk away. I think he should figure out how to be your father, even if he's not biologically. Because that's what fathers do. They show up. They choose their kids every day. She looked at Marcus. Right? Marcus met her gaze, and something passed between them. A challenge. An expectation. He turned back to Lily. You're right. About all of it. I've been a coward. I let my doubts become more important than you. I let my mother's poison infect how I saw you. And when I finally had proof that you weren't biologically mine, my first instinct was to retreat, to let that be my excuse. He took a shaky breath. But you're still my daughter. You're still the baby I held in the hospital, the kid I taught to ride a bike, the person who shares my terrible sense of humor and my inability to dance. Biology doesn't change that. It shouldn't change that. But it does, Lily said softly. It changes everything. Because now I know that all those years when you were pulling away, when you were doubting, when you were looking at me like I was a stranger, you weren't entirely wrong. I wasn't yours the way you thought I was. You were always mine. I just couldn't see it. And now that you know I'm not? Now that there's proof? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was raw. I don't know how to be your father anymore. I don't know how to erase the damage I've done. But I want to try, if you'll let me. Lily looked at me, and I saw the question in her eyes. What do I do, Mom? How do I navigate this? I touched her hand gently. It's your choice, baby. Whatever you decide, I support you. She turned back to Marcus and Daniel, these two men who were both her father in different ways. Okay, here's what I want. I want both of you to be in my life. Not because you have to, not because it's legally required or socially expected, but because you choose to be, because you want to know me, not as an obligation, but as a person. I do, Daniel said immediately. I absolutely do. I do too, Marcus added. I know I haven't shown it, but I do. Then prove it. Both of you. Show up for me. Not just at birthdays and holidays, but in the regular boring stuff. School plays and doctor's appointments and movie nights. Be present. Be interested. Be my fathers, both of you, in whatever way we figure out together. We can do that, Daniel said, looking at Marcus. Right? Marcus nodded. Yeah, we can do that. And just like that, our broken family began to rebuild itself into something new. Something strange and complicated and not at all what any of us had planned. But maybe that was okay. Maybe families didn't have to look like the picture-perfect versions we saw in magazines. Maybe they could be messy and reconstructed and still whole. The lawsuit against Westside Reproductive Health took 2 years to settle. The clinic had closed by then, shut down after multiple similar cases emerged. Dr. Green, the physician who'd overseen my procedure, had his medical license suspended. We received a settlement. Not enough to undo the harm, but enough to pay for Lily's college and therapy and the countless ways this revelation had reshaped our lives. Marcus and I never got back together. We were too different, had hurt each other too deeply. But we learned to co-parent in a way we never had during our marriage. He showed up for Lily, really showed up, consistently and genuinely. It didn't erase the years of doubt, but it was a start. Daniel surprised everyone by becoming the father Lily needed. He took her to art museums and indie concerts, taught her to cook his terrible pasta, and listened to her teenage dramas with patience Marcus had never managed. They looked alike, people noticed. The same smile, the same gestures. It gave Lily something she'd never had before, the security of visible connection. And me? I learned that sometimes the truth sets you free, even when it's not the truth you expected. I learned that families are built on choice as much as biology. I learned that my daughter was strong enough to rewrite her own story. 2 years after the wedding that changed everything, I sat in the audience at Lily's school play. On my left was Daniel, grinning with pride. On my right was Marcus, with Vivian beside him, 7 months pregnant with the baby sister Lily was excited to meet. We'd never be a conventional family, but we were a family nonetheless. When Lily took her bow, she looked into the audience and found us, all of us, her complicated collection of parents and soon-to-be siblings. She smiled, that smile that looked like her grandfather, and waved. I waved back, thinking about how far we'd come from that wedding invitation that had arrived on a Tuesday morning. How much pain we'd walked through to get to this moment. How the truth, messy and complicated and nothing like we'd expected, had somehow set us all free. Marcus had been right about one thing. Lily looked nothing like him. She never had. She never would. But she was his daughter anyway, and mine, and Daniel's, and absolutely, perfectly herself. And that, finally, was enough. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.